So can everyone see this? Okay?
I can, yes.
Okay, perfect. So my name is Ariel Newman, and my coworker Joel Stewart is also here. We are both data analysts with DataSpark, which houses the Rhode Island Data Hub, which is our state longitudinal data system. And I'll walk you through just some of our background, the basics of what we do, and then Joel will kind of take you through some of the products that we create, and then we'll finish up with showing you a dashboard that will soon be on a public-facing website that you all can look at when it is formalized. Hopefully it's mid-February is what we're looking at for that launch. So the Rhode Island Data Hub was started in 2009 along with DataSpark, which was originally a nonprofit called ProvPlan based in Providence, Rhode Island. And at that nonprofit, how the SLDS was funded was through a series of U.S. Department of Education SLDS grants, and then continued to be funding and further developed infrastructure and improved matching methods and all of those things with WDQI grants, or Workforce Quality Development Initiative. And so those grants we're still using those to create the websites that we're going to be, or the dashboards, which will be in the website that we're going to show you. And with that, we received the first SLDS grant in 2009, and then the second in 2012. And those were mainly just to get the system up and running and to also forge the relationship between all of the different entities and state agencies. Kind of just the basics of what we do now. We're now housed at the University of Rhode Island. We were acquired in February of 2017, and we currently are working there. And our most basic kind of bread and butter is we link data across all of the different state agencies in a myriad of data sets through probabilistic matching. And we match individuals using different source IDs, but mainly first, last name, date of birth, social security number, and then the source ID that comes from each of the individual data sets. We have the mission of DataSpark, which is our organization is to connect this data, so trying to break down the silos that are commonly seen in state agencies to inform policy and program evaluation, especially for those state agencies, especially now that we've moved to the University of Rhode Island, and then to, all in all, really improve the well-being of Rhode Islanders in any way that we can through the use of data and improving data decision-making. And so we have, as you can see here, a large number of different data sources that actually get fed into the data hub. And all of these, not all of these are given to us on a regular basis, but you can see the ones that have a solid black line around the edges are ones that we get frequently, regularly, and are constantly updated in the data hub. And using all of these different data sets, we're able to continuously improve the match rate and be able to basically kind of look at longitudinally people in Rhode Island from birth until, we haven't gotten death records actually, so basically until the workforce. And so we do have K-12, higher education, workforce, as well as Department of Corrections, some DCYF, which is the Department of Children, Youth, and Families. And then we have occasionally smaller data sets that are not on the state level. So we could get data sets from local districts, such as Providence Public School District or Central Falls School District. And then we also work with nonprofits to help them either get aggregate data for populations that they're trying to serve and to help to improve kind of their process and evaluation of programs that they're implementing. And so we kind of come at it from different tiers of having the state level and where we work very closely with the state agencies, but then also go very local where we'll work with those more neighborhood level nonprofit organizations. So some of the uses and functions of both DataSpark and the Data Hub, one of the biggest things that we do is support government agencies in their work not only with bringing in their data and looking at it to make sure that everything looks right, auditing the data in a sense, as well as helping them to improve their methods of data collection. But we really forge partnerships with the state agencies and try to create cross-agency relationships and partnerships, which you can see all of the lists of a lot of the agencies that we work with on a regular basis. And through these different relationships that we have worked since 2009 to create and to continue building on, we've been able to really create this extremely robust data system, which is now able to be accessed and used by each of these agencies on a regular basis to do a myriad of things, which Joel will get into a little bit more. And then we also do a lot of program evaluation and research and create products. One of the biggest ones that I'll touch on is we are currently working with the Urban Institute in Washington, D.C. on a National Institute for Justice grant that we received through the Rhode Island Department of Education. And we're working very closely with the Central Falls School District as well as the Providence Public School District to look at restorative practices and how that works as a diversion from other more punitive disciplinary actions that could be taken against the student. So not only looking at the outcomes of those students who receive restorative conferencing versus being suspended or any other myriad of ways that people discipline students in schools, but also looking at the process of implementation to then give feedback to the different schools and to also create some research so that other districts can try to implement the restorative practices and to really try to expand the program as much as humanly possible. And so using both local school district data as well as Rhode Island education statewide data, we're able to look at matched samples of students to those treatment individuals, if you want to put it that way, who are receiving the conferences to see if there are different outcomes. And so we kind of use all of the different levels of data that we have to try to help these different programs have a more robust evaluation than they normally would with just one level of data, or not as much as they could without the data hub.
Okay, so another thing that essentially the core of what we do day to day is different data analyses. And a big area where we've done work in this is in chronic absenteeism. And so a lot of times this involves maybe just one data set where we look at it longitudinally. But other times, as you can see in some of our examples, we've looked at cross-sector analyses, looking at like how chronic absenteeism in high school might be associated with college persistence. And before I move forward, I just want to say that these slides that you have received or will be receiving, a lot of these examples are hyperlinked, and so you can, whenever you have time, go into and look at them on your own. I'm going to go through the rest of these presentation relatively quickly. Another aspect of our work is supporting institutional research. So alongside doing data analysis in-house, we also work with other researchers at different academic institutions. An example of this is there's a researcher at Brown who is interested in looking at early life lead exposure and how that influences wage trajectories or criminal behavior later on in life. And with the power of the Data Hub, we were able to prep a pretty massive data set for them to do various analyses and generate a lot of different papers. Downstream from a lot of analyses we do, we can use our work to inform policy. One aspect where this was pretty crucial here in Rhode Island was we were able to assess the effects of the Lead Hazard Mitigation Act. This was a law passed here in Rhode Island that sought to minimize exposure to lead hazards in the home. And so we were able to kind of dive in and look at the effects of that policy and how it could be improved down the road. We also generate a lot of materials. It's important for us to, as we say, democratize data and information. And so through our work, we do create data stories and reports. And these are all shared online. And they typically, data stories take a narrative format and incorporate interactive data visualizations that tell a story about something going on here in our state. And then we also just have infographics and other reports that are all accessible on our website. Another important feature of working with these various state agencies is that we can, with the Data Hub, we can kind of feed back to them how their data storage, collection, or maintenance behaviors can be improved. Now, over time, we've been working with some of these agencies for quite a while, and so it's not an issue, but sometimes with a newer effort, we find that sometimes the data could be collected or stored differently, and so it's a two-way street with the agencies we work with, and we can help them do better. We also, as I previously mentioned, we do a lot of reports and analyses. One example of this was we looked at post-secondary health grads. We looked at their wages and the other outcomes for those types of graduates. And then a big part of all of this really is cross-agency data integration. So, just having data siloed, there's a lot of stuff, there's a lot of research you could do out of a siloed data set, but once you start connecting across these different agencies, you can do really cool things. And it's seemingly endless amount of studies that we could do after incorporating all of these state agencies.
And that brings us to kind of our biggest project that we've been recently working on, which I mentioned, which is the P20W, so pre-K through 20th grade in college, and then through the workforce is the W piece of that acronym, P20W. And this P20W dashboard website I promise we'll come up with a catchier name than that by the time it's launched. But this website was really a collaborative effort between multiple state agencies and was driven by the governor's workforce board, where the governor really wanted to have some type of public-facing website where people could look at different cross-sector indicators, whether that be through the K12 system is one big state agency that we're working with on this, the Rhode Island Office of the Post-Secondary Commissioner, RIOPC is that one, and then the Rhode Island Department of Labor and Training, which is who houses the governor's workforce board. And so the governor wanted to have this public-facing dashboard that people could go in to see how is my district doing with our high school graduates, what do their wages look like 5, 10 years out from graduation at a public Rhode Island school. And that could be one indicator. Also, if you wanted to look up graduation rates of your school versus another school. So we disaggregate at many different levels. So it could be by race, ethnicity, it could be by your school, your district, free or reduced price lunch, which is a proxy for socioeconomic status, as well as really a number of different indicators depending on the sector. For higher ed, it was looking at persistence, retention, as well as completion of individuals in the 3 public institutions that we receive data from. And then with the Department of Labor and Training, trying to look at a lot of their workforce development programs and to see if those are actually succeeding in what they intended to do to increase individuals going into those kind of hot new jobs or the hot industries, as they call them, in Rhode Island, and getting the higher wages than previously before taking the workforce development training. And so with this joint effort across the 3 different sectors, including, and then in addition to the governor's office, we connected all of these different data sets to be able to look at, like I mentioned, the high school graduates and their long-term outcomes with wage, but then also looking at, let's say, if they participated in a career and technical education, whether it be at some type of skill trade or something, and looking at whether participating in CTE increased wages versus those individuals that did not participate. And if you look at some of our higher ed, looking at specifically the Rhode Island public high school cohort in the completion rate for the 3 public institutions to see how many of our students are actually persisting and completing, and then you could even disaggregate that by race, ethnicity, gender, Pell status, which is another indicator of socioeconomic status. And so with this kind of joint effort amongst the 3 different sectors, we have had multiple meetings brought together, all of these individuals on a very regular basis to develop each of these indicators and to develop the website and to really try to break down those silos, as we mentioned, which is kind of the biggest theme of this entire presentation, as much as humanly possible. And with this dashboard, it's kind of the first public-facing website that will house all of the different information in one easy-to-access place. And so we will actually show you one of these, the one that I had mentioned, the dashboard, which is looking at high school, or it's using K12 data matched with Department of Labor and Training wage data, and I believe higher ed is in here as well. So I'll let Joel walk you through this.
Yeah, so this is so in this top chart here.
Oh, and this is all done in Power BI, if you're wondering what tools we were using for this, as opposed to Tableau, which I think is what people are
it's pretty common
to.
So yeah, in this top chart here, what we've done is we looked at individuals across time relative to the point in which they graduated high school. So this x-axis here is number of years after high school graduation. And then the y-axis, we're looking at their annual median income of those individuals. So for example, we can see for people here in Rhode Island who graduated at a public Rhode Island high school, we can see that first year after high school graduation, they're making around $5,500. That's the median income. And we can see it rise across the years. And we're up to 11, almost, in the next update, we'll have 12 years post high school graduation. And in the bottom chart, we do pretty much the same thing, except we're looking at it cohort-wise. So, you know, we're looking at the different lines represent the different graduation years. And if you kind of look closely, you can kind of parse out some of the effects of the recession in here. Now, we can also interact with this data set. So we can disaggregate this, as Ariel alluded to, by a variety of different demographic and socioeconomic factors. So we can look at students who participated in CTE programs, career and technical education programs. Right now we only have a few years of data, but we can see that within the first 2 years following high school graduation, there is a difference between those who participated in CTE and those who didn't. We can look at this by special education status or free and reduced lunch. We can look at it by sex, race and ethnicity, so on and so forth. And so I also have, post-secondary education in here. So this is just one example of kind of the powerful thing you can do when you incorporate the Department of Education, so K12 data with post-secondary data and workforce data. You connect all of these data sources and you can kind of look at you know, these different outcomes in this education to career pipeline.
And with this, and this one on the second page, you can see where you can actually compare between 2 different districts or schools, which is another key factor that our partners wanted in the dashboard. But kind of the most, you would never be able to accomplish this, as Joel said, without all of the different sectors coming together and agreeing to have their data housed at the data hub and also analyzed by us to create these dashboards. It's important to note that this, it was driven through a governor's initiative and through the Governor's Workforce Board, and that was also how it was funded through one of the WDQI grants, the Workforce Quality, Data Quality, sorry, Workforce Data Quality Initiative. That's what it stands for. And so this was paid entirely through that. And so it's another way to just really publicize and democratize data. And so with that, we'll go back to our slide. And if you wanted to look at any additional products or get more information on the types of things that we do, here are 2 websites that you can access. And then if there are any questions post this presentation later on that pop up, or if you're interested in getting more information about anything we talked about, including funding and our development, feel free to reach out to either one of us. And we'll keep this up on the screen as we move into the